Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast of uncommon conversations about love. I'm your host, Francesca HERE. So if you are a listener of the podcast, then you know that I am generally very excited about my guests, always excited about my guests. But when I say that I'm excited to have had this conversation with Erin Claire Jones and for you to hear it, I really, really mean it. If you are a listener of the podcast, you also will probably have noticed that I've started talking about this thing called human design, because since discovering it, I have just become increasingly fascinated by it and its power to really help people understand how to live a life that is really in alignment with who you really are, how you were optimally designed to operate in this world. And that is what human design provides. It gives you a real practical framework for that. So I'm super excited about that. And I have discovered Erin Claire Jones through my deep dive into human design. And I'm a total super fan of hers. And I reached out to her to ask her to be on the show. And she said yes. So I was completely thrilled. And I got to go and interview her at her beautiful home in Brooklyn. And we had a great conversation, which I'm very excited for you to hear. But first, let me introduce, for those of you who do not know Erin Claire Jones, she is a leadership coach specializing in human design. She has been featured in Forbes, Well and Good, Nylon, Culture Trip, The Sunday Times, and more. She helps leaders and teams step into their highest potential by offering them the self-knowledge and tools to perform at the top of their personal and professional games. She has consulted for startups all over the world, built companies supporting executives, partnerships, and small teams to operate more harmoniously and effectively, and conducted research on leadership challenges at 90-plus early-stage companies. She's a total badass. Very excited for you to hear this conversation with Erin Claire Jones. Erin Claire Jones, I am so excited to be sitting in your apartment talking to you. Welcome to Dear Franny.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
This is just amazing. I discovered human design on September 3rd. It is now October 31st, and I have just been getting more obsessed with it by the day. And you're one of the first people that I found out in the world who is an expert and a reader, and I was totally stalking all the podcasts you've been on and listening to all your interviews.
So cool. I love that.
So I'm a groupie. Just want to get that out there.
That means a lot to hear.
So how are you?
I'm great. It's nice to be doing it at my home, but I'm good. Things have been very busy recently, which I'm grateful for, but also as a projector, I'm really learning my boundaries.
Yeah, and I actually wondered that too. I was like, gosh, she's all over the place. You're doing so much work. You're in super high demand, which is amazing, but also you're a projector.
I'm like an energy projector. I have a lot of energy in my design, but it's I really do burn out. So I think just for me, it's always just about learning about the sustainability, and I'm learning it by doing it and burning out. I mean, take a step back, how to do this in a more sustainable way. It feels good.
Trial and error, but yeah. So for those who are listening who haven't heard of human design, and in my experience so far, most people have not heard of human design.
Totally.
And then I'm text me your birth details.
Yeah. I want to know now, yeah.
How do you describe it?
Mm-hmm. So basically, human design gives us our energetic DNA. So it's based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. And through that information, we understand how you're designed to make decisions, communicate, cultivate relationships, process information, the environments you're designed to be in, and so much more. And so I think more than anything else, it's not about giving people foreign information that doesn't make sense to them or feels very new, but it's often stuff they intuitively know but haven't given themselves permission to step into. Yeah. So it's really just permission to be who you are and just having a stranger reflect it back to you.
Yes. And that's how I felt when I first discovered it. The main way that I describe it was just feeling validated. Just validated that there were these things about myself that I knew, but I wish that they were different because I wish I was more like other people in these particular ways. And, being raised in a family that had a lot more energy than I did, and having all my friends and have a lot more energy than I do, and my boyfriend having everyone, I'm what is wrong with me? And I definitely felt I spent a lot of my life feeling like I was lazy, even though I was also at the same time very hardworking. So I was I'm not lazy. Right. What is it? What's going on here? I just don't have
the same source of energy as everyone else.
Yeah. So can you kind of give the quick overview of the different energy types and how we operate?
Yes, of course. So in human design, there are billions of different configurations. So I just want to preface here that I'm definitely oversimplifying, but at the highest level, there are 5 different types. So we have manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. And so so the majority of the population make up generators and manifesting generators. So it's probably why people like you and I feel like, oh my God, we have to keep up. We can't keep up with all the people. And so manifesting generators and generators are basically the people that really have the energy and the life force to kind of build and create and bring things to life. And the most important thing in the world is that they're really doing work that is deeply satisfying to them. They're kind of designed to wake up each morning with like a full tank of energy to use their energy in super satisfying ways and then kind of crash and wake up recharge. If they actually use their energy in a way that feels good, like they're going to naturally replenish and regenerate overnight. But if they're not, they're probably going to feel restless when they go to bed or just feel depleted in the wrong way. So most important for these people to have boundaries and just be so clear about what they're saying yes to and no to, and saying yes out of a place of like pure joy and pleasure and not because they think they should. The difference between the two is that manifesting generators tend to move very quickly. Their gift is really that of efficiency. And so they often thrive when they have their energy in a lot of things at once. And it's really about kind of pivoting as soon as the energy is no longer there for something. And so the key thing for both of those types is that they're really designed to allow life to come to them. So rather than chasing after things, trying to manifest, make it happen, it's basically their like nature is to be super magnetic. And so it's really just paying attention to what is showing up in their outer world and like what their gut is responding to in that space.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Magnetic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that magnetism requires that they love what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And also that makes sense why, since they are the majority of the population, why we have so much talk in our culture about like finding your purpose and doing what you love. And, you know, like, because
follow your gut.
Follow your gut. Right. On all of those things, which it makes sense for a lot of people, but not for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what I love about human design. Everyone was like, follow your gut. I'm like, I don't have a gut response. I don't know what that feels like. So, or like, you should market in this way. And like, it's just, it actually is different for each of us. And so when we actually have a language, we're like, oh, this is my operating system. Like, I'm going to do it that way. Then it's very helpful.
Yeah, totally. I think especially as an entrepreneur.
Oh my God.
It's all like manifesting. Actually, it's all Manifestor. I feel like it's the way, the primary way that we talk about entrepreneurship and business, it's from that manifestor perspective, which I'm jumping ahead. Okay, let let you finish. I'm just so excited.
It's such a good point though. Like you're very cute. Okay. So I have so many clients that are just like, you know, my coach told me to do this, or like I read that I'm supposed to do it this way, and they're like, it's just not working. And so like, just, you know, very quick tangent, like for manifesting generators and generators, like they have to find a form of marketing that just feels really good to them. Like they need to be lit up by that. So they're like, I have to do this social media, but I hate it. Like it's not going to work, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Projectors. So you and I are projectors, and projectors are about 20% of the population. And so what we were kind of referencing earlier is that projectors don't have the same consistent access to energy as generators and manifesting generators do. I will say projectors are the most diverse of types. So like, you know, you have 2 centers defined. I have 7 centers defined. There's so much variation in them, but in general, projectors are really here to kind of be leaders and guides and teachers. They're really not here to be the doers. And so when we're brought into a company or into an opportunity and expected to generate in that way, we just like often can't keep up and burn ourselves out very quickly. Our gift is really in our sensitivity to energy and people. Like we have an ability to kind of penetrate into people and make them feel incredibly seen and recognized. But it's also only doing that to people that are actually ready to receive that. It's super, you know, you said you've been digging into human design in a big way. When projectors discover human design, often the impulse is like, I have to learn everything. You know, I know that was mine, but I just think that for projectors, it's super healthy for us to kind of find a modality and a system and go really deeply into it and kind of become the expert on that thing, so we can kind of be invited in to share that wisdom.
Yeah.
And so the strategy for projectors is, again, not about initiating or trying to make things happen, but it's basically just about waiting to be invited in and recognized before engaging. Because again, our energy is super intense, and I think that we just need to make sure people are actually ready to receive it. So I think when I first heard that, I was like, oh God, this feels so passive. And I think that was
hard for me too, to wrap my head around when I first heard that.
Totally. Yeah. And I just learned that my work is to just like be busy making myself visible and available so that people can find me.
You're doing a really good job.
Thank you. It was hard. I will say first 3 years, it was like, I wasn't visible at all, but like I was still like, it was a different time. People weren't ready for it, you know? But I think when I really learned like, oh, I've got to just put myself out there, you know, and let the people that resonate come, rather than like, I would say my first iteration of my business was like reaching out to specific people, you know, and like, and it's just such a different thing to be like, my job is to make myself available and allow the invitations to come.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Manifesting. Do you want to say anything about the projector piece? Or?
No. I'm gonna let you finish. Because...
Okay. Manifestors are about 9% of the population. Manifestors are the only ones that are really here to kind of initiate and make things happen. They're also really not here to do all they're doing. Like their gift is really in kind of bringing new ideas to life and kind of being that like spark, that like initial force. They often are very naturally independent. They don't really do well when they're being told what to do or managed or guided in any way.
Actually, like with my boyfriend and my mom, both are manifestors.
My mom and my sister too.
Okay, yeah. And my mom has also ego authority.
Yes,
so
my mom too.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, this explains so much. much.
It really does, you know? And I think just like, again, quick side note, like there's so much empathy and understanding that comes from understanding the designs of the people around you, because it's so challenging when we expect people to be something different than what they are.
Yeah.
But when we like allow them to be them, it's so powerful.
It's the game changer for relationships, I think.
100%.
I mean, it's like my sister is a generator.
Yeah.
And she has emotional authority. And the fact that my sister is emotional and she's always taken a long time to make decisions and it's like back and forth has been something that's been so frustrating to me our whole lives. And now I'm like, first of all, I'm like, well, now I feel like an asshole.
Totally.
Because I'm like, I was wishing her to be different, but like, why? That's just who she is. Obviously, you can come to that place of accepting other people without understanding human design. Mm-hmm. But for me, I just see it as this tool to really shortcut that process. So you don't have to spend years wondering like, why doesn't Erin have as much energy as I do? Or like, why, this person takes so long to make decisions? Or why do they always know immediately and then they pressure me? Like, all of those things that, it's now explained.
No, it's such a good point. It's funny. It's like, it always unlocks new things. Like, I have to say that I like learned so many new things about my design like this week. And even hearing you talk about this, and my sister and I are emotional. My mom is open. So she was always amplifying our emotions. So I know that might be foreign to the people here, but I just think that like, it's always like unlocking different layers when you kind of really understand those dynamics. So yes, so helpful to understand. I know in my romantic partnership, it has changed the game because like similar, it's like my boyfriend makes decisions like that. He's all about his gut. Like
what's his energy type?
He's a generator.
Okay.
A sacral generator. And like, I need a lot more time, and so being able to kind of allow ourselves to do that. But back to the point. Yes. So manifestors, super powerful, very impactful beings. Again, kind of really here to do things on their own terms, in their own way. So they often operate best when they're autonomous and kind of doing their own thing. Or if they're working within a company, if they're kind of given like reign to just do whatever they'd like, keep people updated, And so again, they also will really struggle if they try to fit in or try to kind of wait for things to come to them or like make themselves wrong for not being like everyone else. But like these people are super powerful. So it's all about kind of stepping into that power.
Yes, I love it.
And their strategy is about initiating, making the first move, but also about informing. So once they've made a decision, just basically getting super clear on all the people that decision is going to impact and make sure that they let them know. It's a way to like not ask for permission, but just allow them to manifest with more ease.
I love it. And then our friends, our poor reflector friends who are so underrepresented.
So reflector is about 1% of the population. Super unique and magical beings. So these are basically people that are very sensitive to their physical environment and to a lot of different things. And so like they basically take in everything in their environment and mirror it back to us. And so like one of the most important things they can do is just be in environments that feel good to them because they're gonna like just embody it, These people have like very objective perspectives and evaluations of like what's going on. And so like when I've had reflectors on my team before, I'm literally asking them questions all the time, like, what do you think about this? What do you see about this? And they just have so like the way they see the world is just different. And they just like see energy and like layers in a way that like I think is very special.
It's a lot of inherent wisdom.
And just like this ability, because like they're really designed to be super adaptable and flexible, and there's like not much like fixed and rigid in them, and so they can kind of like adapt to all these different ways of being. And like what's magical is that like over the course of a month they're gonna have periods where they feel like a manifesting generator, like a generator, like a projector, like a manifestor. And so it's really about like adapting to that flexibility of identity and not forcing themselves to kind of just be one way.
Is that just a natural cycle for them, or is it dependent on who they're surrounding themselves with?
So it's definitely going to be impacted by who they're surrounding themselves by, but it's also based on the planets. So they can actually track how they're going to be impacted each day. Of like, I'm going to feel more, I know. It's really crazy. It's called the transits in human design, but like it's so helpful for them to follow of like, oh, like I'm going to have this activated this day. I'll feel more like a projector, more like a generator, because like if they're unconscious about it, like they're probably going to just find that flow anyways. But like, I have clients who are like, one week I'll like do everything. I'm moving so fast. Like the next week I like can't get out of bed. You know what I mean? And so just like the key for them is just honoring that adaptability and flexibility and not putting themselves into one box.
Yeah. So I know that you work with a lot of companies and a lot of corporate environments. So when you go in and you start talking about human design and energy types and planets and answer that question for people who are listening, like, because I think some people, just based on the fact that it's based on your date, time, and place of birth, they're checked out. They're like, nope. This is woo-woo, this is nonsense, like there's no scientific basis for that, like, and then they just don't want to hear anything else. Or then when I still continue to tell them, they're just like, well, that's like everything you're saying could apply to everyone. And I'm like, well, but it doesn't, but that's fine. Like, how do you deal with that resistance, especially like I would think in a work environment, there are people who are just like, you're telling me that I need to follow the planets to like know how productive I can be at work. Yeah. What's your response to that?
Well, first I'll say I love skeptics so much. And like, that's part of why I do this work, because my role in human design specifically is like, it's just like to make it super accessible. You know, I actually never talk about the planets. I think that's going to like alienate people pretty immediately. Yeah. Obviously the planets are going to inform it if it's based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. But I think that like my experience is that in general, people are super curious to learn about themselves. Yeah. Like I have a client right now who's bringing human design to her team. And so she was super nervous about getting their birth information, you know? I gave her like a whole script, you know? And she was like, da-da-da-da-da. And like, they were like, sure, tell me more. Like my wife might like this. There was resistance, but also intrigue. And so I think in general, like I don't experience many people that are like totally, absolutely resistant.
Yeah. I haven't either, actually. Yeah. They're very skeptical.
And I think like my encouragement is like, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, you know, like take the things that resonate, leave the rest. Like I'm offering a way of operating that you don't have to choose to align with, but often if you do align with it, it's just going to feel better. My sense is that the language of human design is so actually intuitive to people. And because it's so grounded, it's like you make decisions this way. You need to be around people when you do this. Like just like so specific that often they're like, oh yeah, that's true for me. And so I do think that my experience is that it often resonates on like a very cellular level, that they actually stop caring where it comes from. And I think there's also something relieving about like, I don't have to answer a huge questionnaire or like self-diagnose. Like I can just like know. So that's been my experience. But it's always an experiment, you know? And I also think actually the most important piece is that someone's like willing to look at themselves and grow and change, because like I think probably the biggest skeptics are the people that are actually just like so narrow-minded and like just they're resistant to change it anyway.
It's true. And their self-awareness is not great. So they're not,
and they actually have no interest in it.
They're not interested in knowing themselves any better. Even the skeptics, they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like me, but they're still just like, but I mean, I'm sure that sounds like a lot of people. I'm like, well, it does sound like a lot of people, because you're not the only one in the world who's, you know, a generator or whatever. But
can I say one thing really quickly?
Yes.
I think it's such a good point. And like, I've always wondered, because sometimes I like, you know, there's an offering called Blueprint, which I'm making yours. Yes. But like, there have been a few times where I've made mistakes and like sent people the wrong one. You know, like I messed up their birth information. They messed up their birth information. It's always so interesting, because whenever I send someone the wrong one, they're literally like, this doesn't resonate. The birth information's wrong. And then I like send them the right one. They're like, okay, this is me. Perfect. You know, and there's just like this sense where like, you literally saw 2 or 3 and you knew it was you. Yeah. And so that's always just interesting to me, because like there's a level of like, yeah, I guess it could appeal to a lot of people, but I hear other designs and they make zero sense to me.
Yeah, actually I did. So my father passed away many years ago, and my mom has his birth certificate, but doesn't have a time on it. So I was like, I just put in a bunch of different times. Like, he's a generator, and he was my dad. I know he was a generator, but there was like, I was like, let me just try what happens if he was born at like, you know, 12:30 in the morning, and it made him a reflector. And I was like, and I'm like, I was really like trying to sit with it and being like, okay, could my father have really been a reflector? And just like thinking, and I'm like, no, he just wasn't. He was a generator. Like, there's nothing about the reflector profile that makes sense for my dad, you know? So it's like, so I agree. It's like, you know yourself, and the people. So I guess I have a question, because one thing that I see people getting kind of confusing their energy type with like a personality type. So thinking that like, oh, like a lot of people so far, when I'm like sending them this like breakdown, this like summary of the energy types, everybody thinks they're a manifestor. First of all.
Whenever you're going to talk, I'm like, who thinks they're a manifestor? It's like 70, but I was like, it's about 9%. You guys are not quite on.
Everyone thinks they're a manifestor, but I think they think they're a manifestor because they're like, oh, well, I'm a person who, you know, like I work hard and I have goals and I have a vision for my life, and I go, and I'm like, no, that's nothing. Those are two separate things. So I guess, how do you help to make people understand the difference between their personality and their human design?
Well, so it's so interesting, because in human design, there is the personality and design. And so, but I think that like, actually that's part of the magic of human design, is that like, it gives us language for who we think we are and the things we know, but it also gives us language for things that are underneath the surface and the energetics. And so I think my experience is people like want to be a manifestor in some ways, because there's just conditioning that like they need to go hustle and make it happen. But like, when you actually have a conversation around like what has happened when they've done that, it often hasn't been successful. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
And then and then I'll also say that like, I've worked with a number of twins, you know, where they have a very similar design, and they're like, but we're so different. It's like, think of your human design as like your operating system. It kind of like helps you know how to navigate life, but how you express it and like how it shows up in your life is going to be so different, you know? And so and that's what I love about it, is that I think I had a little bit of nervousness when I first entered companies where I was like, and just worked with people. I was like, I don't want it to feel prescriptive, you know? And I never had that experience, because people get to just like use it. They're like, oh, I make decisions through my gut, you know? Like I need to sleep on things. And so I do think that the way we express it and how it's going to look is going to be very different. But you can really feel it. Like when we talk about energy types, like you can feel when someone's a projector or a manifestor or a generator. Yeah. Reflector is a little bit harder because they're so all the things
open. And I feel that I'm already now, like I can predict what people's energy type. It's
crazy, right?
But one thing, and you just touched on this, in terms of being a projector and having the strategy of waiting for the invitation, and that being so hard for me to accept at first, because I'm like, I don't want to wait. Like, I need to go. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I've got to make things happen. I've got to go out and do things. But when I sat and I sat with it, reflected back on, like, first of all, my best clients, the most significant events of my life, like everything that's like the most major things that have happened have always kind of like come, quote unquote, out of the blue. Like they're things that have come to me. They're not the things. And there's some things that I've like worked so hard for this like one goal and like put all of my heart and my soul and my energy in it, and it just didn't happen. And I was so frustrated. But then there were these other things that were still coming to me, and I was kind of taking them for granted because I was so focused on the thing that I was going after that wasn't. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so I'm like, oh, this also just helps me to be more aware and just grateful.
Yeah. And I think it's such a good example too, because like, again, because you're a projector, it doesn't mean that you can't initiate. It just means that like when you do, it's probably going to be harder and it's not going to feel very good.
Yeah.
And like when you enter into things through an invitation, things are going to flow a lot easier, you know? And so I think that like the only times I've had resistance when people like heard about their design was like, I want to be something else. I'm like, how does it feel to operate in the way that you are? They're like, not good, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think that like similarly, I think I thought back on all of my experiences. I was like, I was invited into all them. Like everything I've tried to push or make happen hasn't happened. And so I think it's also cool, the retrospective tool, to just like look at how you entered things in the past and whether it's been in a way that's really aligned with their design.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting. This is random about projectors, but you know, Barack Obama is a projector, and I read Michelle Obama's book this year.
Yes, good.
It's so good. And this was, I read the book before I found out about human design, but I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. Like, so much sense. Even like he was lobbied to run for politics. Like he was totally invited in. People were like, no, you're brilliant. You're this. You should do this. Like, come do this. And I'm like, oh, because you would think like a politician is like the total like manifestor, like, you know, but it's like, oh, I get it. Like it's totally, you really, some people kind of, when they first hear about the energy types, they think there's certain professions that are just like specific energy types. And it's like, no, anyone can be anything. Totally. It's just how you go about operating and making that happen for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like anyone can be a CEO, but they're going to like, it's going to look a little bit different and they're going to need different support. But I love the Obama example because I was just like, he's a 6'2". So in human design, there are different profiles. Yes, and everyone has like a different way of manifesting their purpose. I used to always think Obama and I were like the same because we were 6'2" emotional projectors, but like turns out our designs are very different. But I think that like 6'2s really come into their fullness when they're like beyond 50.
Yeah.
And so he was like elected.
That's the role model
teacher. So they basically live their life in 3 phases, and it's just like they're designed to kind of really be in their element when they're a little bit older. But it's just so funny because he was elected when he was like 47 or 48, like right kind of broaching on it. So I was just like, oh my God.
I'm really excited about that because my profile is, and actually my birthday is Sunday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I'm going to be 45. And I'm like, come on, let's do this.
It's coming.
I'm so excited to get older.
No, there's something to look forward to. You know, the founder of Human Design was like, so many of us, like our prime is like when we're 50 plus.
Yeah.
You know, and I think something that I've had to remember, I'm a 6'2" too, is like, it's not that you're not a role model or a teacher or any of that stuff before. It's just that like when you actually have all the experience to back it up, it becomes a totally different.
Yeah, it's inherent to who you are. So it's always been part of who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's only getting get more so.
Yeah.
So exciting.
So exciting.
So let's bringing this discussion to relationships and romantic relationships, particularly. I don't know how many of your clients are coming to you seeking, like, I know some people, like, okay, for instance, with astrology, some people who are really into astrology are like, you know, I'm a Taurus, so I can't date I don't know a lot about astrology, so I'm making this up. So people who know about astrology, this is just a random example. So like, I can't date a Pisces because we're too incompatible or whatever, which I've always been like, everyone's potentially compatible with everyone. I don't buy into that. But in terms of like I see the beauty of human design in really understanding your partner and finding ways that you can just coexist better.
And honor them,
yeah, exactly. Just honor who they are and how they're designed. But do you have people coming to you who are looking for more guidance in terms of like, okay, I'm a, emotional manifesting generator. Like, who should I date?
Mm-hmm. I do. And I also am on the same page as you, where I'm just like, I can tell you which types you'll be compatible with, but like, that's not the point of human design. Like for you, and people have like asked about like, let's build a dating app. And I'm like, it's not about like matching people before they connect. And like, I've shared this before, but I just think that like, you kind of need people to have natural chemistry and be super attracted and drawn to each other. And then once you get to that point, it's then like I'm after this doing like a couple session, where it's like they've been together for 7 years, so then you really look at their design and you're like, okay, now that you really understand the difference, one's a manifesting generator, one's a projector, like how can you really support and honor each other? And I think that like any combination is possible. I will say some will be easier than others and some will be harder than others. And there are like other elements that show that, but I think it's really kind of trusting that like initial impulse that you have and using your authority to know what's actually right for you. But then I think just like for me, like understanding that my partner's a generator and then he makes decisions through his gut, and just like all these qualities of his design has been so helpful, because it's like, instead of, this is like a very specific example, but like instead of asking him like an open-ended question that's going to just like go straight to his head, and I ask him super specific yes/no questions that allow him to like respond to his gut, from his gut. And like for him, he knows I'm a projector and my energy is like super inconsistent, and like I need a lot of time to make decisions, and I go through a whole emotional wave, and we just have this whole language to talk about our operating system that I think that like if we didn't have that language, like I'm sure that we would have figured out how to talk through these things, but like it would have been a little bit harder, because I think we would have been like, why aren't you more similar to me? Like I think now we're like, oh my god, we're so different, and we understand it and we leverage it,
Totally. And I think it's like the way that I felt about myself, or like the example I gave my sister, you stop wishing people were different. You stop wishing that they were that they process things the way that you did. Because I think without human design, I'm just like okay, fine, like I understand this is how you are, but do you have to be that way? And now it's like, oh yeah, well you do, and sorry, like actually totally honor how you are.
Totally.
So I guess, and I know this is not a fair question, and you don't, and this is totally contradicting what I just said to preface this. What do you think are some of the more challenging? Like I actually would imagine for a reflector, relationships are hard. Like that is sort of the most difficult sort of starting point.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't say that it's hard for them. I just think it's probably like more important than ever that they have a partner that like really sees them and honors them and recognizes them. Because like if they're expected to like fit into a box or be one thing, it's going to be super challenging. It's actually really good for reflectors to have like consistency in relationships, like because they're adapting so much to have like more stability in the partner. So I also will say like reflectors mirror back what they're seeing. And so if they have a partner who's like going through a hard time, not very self-aware, like they're going to internalize that probably in a big way. So they also probably want to be with partners that are self-aware and kind of doing work and in a way that they can. So I don't think it's harder for them, but it definitely is like a unique situation, where I think that like they just need someone who honors their uniqueness, and they need to honor it too.
Yeah. I want every reflector in the world to know about human design.
I know. It's so, I've worked with a lot of reflectors now, but I always get so happy when they come, because I'm just like, you're living in a world of like a lot of different types of people. And so again, like, and we're all so special. Like we're all so different. But again, like I think that it can be really hard for them to try to be all the things that they're not.
So as for projectors, who do you think is a good match for projectors?
So I think that like, if you're dating somebody of a similar type, there's often just like a level of resonance, like ease. And so like a lot of my former partners have been projectors, and so like, and a lot of my friends are projectors, so it's like it's a natural thing that you're drawn to. So like there's definitely like it's a good compatibility. But like also projectors manifesting generators in the context of business are like the best partnership ever, because they just like bring like two pieces to a puzzle. So I'm not going to answer your question. I'm not going to say anything better. I know that your partner's a manifestor, and again, like you guys are so different. Your energy is like, one is closed, one is super penetrating, but also you both have this like similarity. And kind of even though manifestors really have that manifesting and powerful energy, like it is a little bit more inconsistent. Again, I think it's really all possible. I do think in the context of business, like projector manifesting generator is great.
Yeah, I can see that definitely in business. Yeah, that would be like a really sweet
You need
spot.
it. Yeah. I like have never, I've always had a generator or manifesting generator as a business partner. It's like not a thing I can do on my own.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think, like now I'm like, I need one.
Yeah. Where are they?
Like, I need a generator who wants to be my business partner. I think that would make my life a lot easier. So do you have companies actually like consulting with you in the hiring process, or is it more working with the teams that they already have and figuring out how to manage and delegate?
It's both. The hiring is a little bit complicated.
Yeah,
I'm working with one right now, and it's just like only because, it's a little bit hard to sometimes ask for the birth information, but also you don't really want to make decisions based on it without giving them a chance. So that's like something that we're really experimenting with. But also like, it's super interesting with human design. Like you can see when someone won't last on a team. Like in my former team, I was helping open this big building in New York, and I did human design for all the teams there. But we would bring on these consultants, and like I would actually know within a second if they would last, and like none of them did because
how could you tell?
In that specific example, everybody on my team, it was 2 manifestors, 1 generator, and me, the leader of the projector, is that we were all emotional, which meant we all had these like super intense emotional waves, and we could really meet each other there, but we would bring in these people that were like super wide open emotionally, like basically taking on and like amplifying all of our emotional energy, and it was like always too intense for them. So I think in the team stuff, like I think that it's going to evolve over the next couple of years. I think that like it's so useful because like not only for the team but actually for that person, to like actually enter into a team where they're going to feel recognized and that's going to feel fully functional for them. Such a powerful tool in hiring, and I am doing it with teams, but it is still new. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. It's like a delicate dance.
It's delicate, because you want to make them choices. Like it's not like you're not actually talking to the person and you're just looking at their design. Like again, similar to dating, it's like you've got to feel resonance with that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's more about once you look at their design, you know where to put them and like how to best kind of communicate with them and honor them.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about authority? Because we're talking about being emotional or having like that sacral like gut response and
So basically in human design, there are different ways of making decisions, which are kind of just like, they're often not about making decisions from our mind and trying to rationalize something. Examples of that, there are people that are sacral, which is just true for generators and manifesting generators. And these are basically people that are designed to make decisions based on their gut response, a gut feeling they have in the moment based on like, this thing feels right or it doesn't. My body's opening up.
I'm so envious of that.
I know, right?
It just feels like make life so much easier.
I know. So you can leverage your gut people around you, but it's very powerful. And like their mind's always going to get in the way, and their work is to kind of really tune into and trust that gut response. It can also sound like or you can literally hear it in like babies' voices before they have to like try to rationalize things, For people that are emotional, which can be any type but reflectors, these are basically people, they might have a gut response, they might have a super strong intuition, but they're basically not designed to make decisions in the moment. They're really designed to give themselves time to really feel into things and sleep on things before they commit, because they're kind of always riding this emotional wave, and the most important piece is to not make decisions on the high or the low of the emotional wave, but give themselves space for the emotional charge to disappear. So knowing who those people are, so you can kind of honor their way of making decisions and not rush them, because like so often
they're calm.
Wait till they're calm. Like should be an emotional place. So often for me, it's like I'm on the high of an emotional wave, and I'm like yes, and then I wake up the next day and I'm like, what in the world did I commit to? And if I had just given myself 24 hours, like I would have been entering it from like a calmer place, a more grounded one. There are people that are splenic like you, which is just true for manifestors and projectors, and basically these people are designed to make decisions based on their intuition. And so intuition's different than the gut response. Intuition's super quiet. It's like a feeling of resonating with something or not. It's super quiet. It's a whisper. It tingles that you feel it. It comes and then it disappears. It's not like knocking at your door.
I call it my suspicion.
Yeah.
Because that's how it feels. Like it feels like I'm just like, I just have a feeling I'm supposed to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's super instinctive. It's like, I mean, I'm sure you've read it. It's like all about this survival instinct. It's like, how do I survive? I have a feeling that I should do this or this or this. And so it's really about getting quiet enough to hear it, and like also often disconnecting yourself from other people's energy so you can really connect to what it's telling you, and then just being courageous enough to act once you hear it. Do you feel like you're connected to your intuition?
I do. But I also very intentionally, I spend a chunk of time in solitude every day on purpose. Like I have not like a super great meditation practice. I'm not as consistent with it, but I do meditate. I journal. I go for hikes by myself almost every day because I just need to have that time, because that's just my time to like think and get inspired, and just I love it. Good. So I take that time. So because of that, I do feel that, But actually, even today, because I just got to New York last night and I was on the subway, coming here, and I was like, how did I live in New York all my life? Surrounded by
super hard
all these people and all this energy, and it's hard for me now that I live in LA and I'm not used to being surrounded by so many people all the time. I'm like, man, this is tiring.
I always say, because so many of my clients are in New York, that like being splenic in New York is not easy. It really like needs some like intentional time to just kind of reconnect. And then we have ego, which is true for your mom, you said. Mine too, which is like, this is only true for projectors and manifestors. Basically means,
and super rare, even among
super rare. and basically means that they're really designed to make decisions based on whether or not they really have the willpower or the fortitude to do something. And they're designed to be selfish in their decision making. It's all about like whether their heart's in it and like asking themselves like, will this decision really take care of me? You know? And like I told my mom this and she was like, oh God, no. You know, she's like, she like makes decisions on behalf of everyone else, which I would say many ego people that I talk to do.
Because they've been judging themselves. Like
exactly.
They can't be, you know, quote unquote selfish in that way.
Exactly. But I think like when their heart's in it, they can move mountains, you know, and it's basically not doing something unless their heart's in it. Then we have G Center says self-projected, which is just true for projectors. And basically these people need to kind of verbally process, like basically surround themselves by people that they trust and just allow themselves to talk. And by doing that, their truth will literally just plop out. So it's not about trying to like figure it out or like have people that are giving you advice. It's just like letting yourself just like do it. Like it's so fun. I'm coordinating a podcast, an event with a friend of mine who has this, and she just like leaves me voice notes every time. She can't figure out the text. She's like, we have to get on the phone. We have to talk through it. I was like, I'll do whatever. I'll honor you. But I just think that like, and so these people are really good at kind of talking things out, you know, if they don't have people around them, you know, even just like journaling, voice recording, just saying things out loud can be useful. There's something called mental projectors. I think it shows up as none when you look it up.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it says no inner authority.
People are always like, what?
I know.
So I think for those people, like they have that element of talking things out. That's healthy for them too. But also these people are so sensitive to their physical environment. So it's really about being in environments that feel good to them and then kind of like allowing themselves to like communicate and sort of see what truth comes out when they do. And then like the most unique and wild one is obviously the reflectors.
Yes,
you know, I think this one is
wild.
Always so strange to me, but it's so resonant with reflectors that I talk to and work with. But basically for the big decisions, this is true for the emotional people too. You don't have to wait to say yes to like a dinner invitation, you know, but I think for the big decisions, reflectors are really designed to give themselves a full 30 days, a full lunar cycle before they commit, because they kind of need that period of time to fully sample something before they like have that knowing inside that it's actually the right thing for them.
Wow. It's so fascinating.
Endlessly.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Goodness. I actually do love my intuition. Like I love having intuition.
Yeah.
But it is sometimes because, and you know, from my chart, sometimes if I think too much about it, then I'm like, oh wait, is that my intuition?
Yeah.
Or is this like, you know, me talking myself into something?
Totally.
So yeah, but I kind of think now the distinction between my intuition and an idea is more of like a pop. It like pops into my head like, oh, you could always do this. Whereas my intuition is like, maybe this is the thing that you should try doing.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like,
Can you associate the intuition with like a place in your body?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't have an answer, by the way.
No. Yeah. No, but now I want to pay more attention to that because that would be helpful. Yeah. That's a really good question.
Just seeing how it shows up, you know, because then it's a thing that can be more reliable. Because like often how the intuition shows up too is like you weren't thinking about it. It's just like all of a sudden there's just like a sense and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's obviously makes it even harder to justify or to make sense of it. But like it's a thing that obviously isn't a product of you.
Gosh, it's so interesting. So I guess like for people though who have this intuition, this intuitive authority, this splenic authority, if you are... Yeah, I think those moments where it just comes, those moments are easier for me actually. Yeah. Because I know like, this isn't coming from nowhere. This is not for no reason. But if there's a time where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make a decision and I'm trying to decide like the best course of action, that's when it gets hard because then I'm like, is this something that I'm thinking myself into or is this something that my intuition is actually, that for me is like the challenge when I'm being more intentional about trying to figure something out.
Right. And you can't really control your intuition when it comes, even though it's like always speaking to you in some way. Like my recommendation for that is to like get out of a container where you're trying to figure it out. Like meditate, go into nature, go for a walk, you know what I mean? Like just things where you just kind of like allow yourself to just like tune in and be with yourself and like see if clarity comes that way.
Yeah, it's always about like turning off the brain.
Right. And turning off this like attempt to like figure it out and just be like, I'm just gonna like flow and like just get super quiet and like really pay attention.
What do you do to turn off your brain?
Always, I have like so much definition in my design, so I've got like a mind that's always running. But I think that, and we like so many of us do, but I think that Kundalini has been like the most powerful practice for me. I think that like it's, you know, a form of meditation, but like incorporates a lot of like mantra and movement. And so that, and I mean, that meditation has always been very powerful. I do like an hour of yoga every day to connect to myself. But yeah, I think that like, it's just trying to like, and especially with the emotional piece, I know so much of my work is to just feel into things. So like, I think that journaling and just like doing it without the pressure, without the intention is super helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
How is it? So being emotional in New York City, is that hard too?
New York is intense.
I mean,
being a projector in New York is like...
New York makes everything harder.
We were just mentioning, I used to live in the city, and I live in Brooklyn now, and like, I just like can't. I mean, I went to the city for like meetings on Monday, and now I'm just like, unless I really have to go into the city, I will not go, you know? Yeah. And so like, I get so activated by the energy that I get super like intense and like moving very quickly. And so I think in moments like that, I can be super impulsive, you know what I mean? And not listen to my emotional authorities. I think that it's really like just taking some time to withdraw. You know, so much of being a projector is actually disconnecting yourself from other people's energy to kind of just reconnect to yourself. So I think spending time alone has always been such a big part for me of living in New York. And also like I leave New York a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good that you get to travel a lot. It's just really helpful. Because I feel being in New York City makes me feel less like myself.
Because you're taking on all the other people's energy.
And I'm just like, I just need to get back to LA where I can like go for a hike and be in my car and have like so much more space and peace.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's also interesting because I think all my life I've thought of myself as being this very strong-willed, independent person. Now I'm like, oh, I'm actually very strong-willed, but like in just the sense of, oh, I'm so much more sensitive than I ever realized. 'Cause I was so busy being like, I'm not sensitive, like, I don't give a fuck.
Totally.
And it's like, oh, I give a lot of fucks.
Yes. No, and owning that. Like, I think that we often feel so much like shame about who we are, you know, or we just are like, this is wrong, you know, I'm gonna like be the opposite. And so I think when like a stranger reflects back to your human design, you're like, oh, that is me. And like, I can just like lean into it. But it makes sense that LA feels better, you know. I think that like, and you have so much openness in your design, but I think like spending time disconnected from other people's energy is gonna be so important for you.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
So what does human design have to say about love?
About love, I mean, I think that like beyond human design, like it's obviously possible for all of us. You know, I think what human design has to say is like how we can enter it in a way that's probably more sustainable and feels better for us. You know, like for me, knowing that I'm like not designed to initiate a relationship. Like in my relationship, I definitely like made myself available. I was like,
me too.
So I just knew that I couldn't make that first move because I know that how we enter things is everything. So I think that it brings a level of consciousness and understanding that how we can really cultivate love that's sustainable and feels really good for us. You know, but I know there's talk of like, oh, like this person in human design isn't meant to be in partnership. Like that stuff is not true. You know, like it's just going to look different for all of us. You know, some of us like are really here to be more independent, but also really like can thrive in partnerships. So I think just using your human design not to limit you, but to kind of like empower you to like find it in a way that feels better to you. Another small example is like, you know, some people with a 4 in their profile, I'm sure you've heard this, but like their opportunities are all designed to kind of come through their community, through their network, through the people they know, like super personal connections. So, like, oh, you're 4/6, right? So those people are like on apps and trying to meet people. It's probably a little bit harder for them, you know? And so it's really about kind of like connecting. And so I think that it often just gives us permission to like, I don't know about you, but I was like the worst at, I just like I wasn't great at dating. Never did the apps. I never knew how to. Yeah. But like, I think that I just could feel that the recognition was so important. So I just like didn't really know how to do surface level stuff.
Yeah. I used to be terrible at dating. Then I got really good at dating coach and all that stuff. But then actually really interesting, the way that I met my boyfriend was I met him on the street and we were talking and my intuition said, I just feel like you're supposed to keep talking to him. I just feel like you're supposed to keep talking to him. And it was like a very brief encounter and we went our separate ways. And I was like...
Even just that physical meeting?
And I was just like, I just feel like I'm supposed to keep talking to that guy. I don't know why.
Wow.
And so I actually went and found him on Twitter because I had enough information about him. And I followed him on Twitter and he followed me right back. And I was like, okay, that's a good sign.
Yes.
And then I messaged him and I said, it was nice meeting you. And that was it. And I was like, I'm just going to say it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, you made yourself available there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously he like, you know, responded and he wound up asking me out and everything. So it's interesting because I'm like, I basically followed my design without knowing about...
That's the thing though. Like human design is not designed to be this thing where it's like, oh, this is like a map that I don't know how to follow. It's like when people are doing work on themselves and are self-aware, they're going to do it intuitively.
Totally.
Human design just gives it a leg up because it's like, oh yeah, okay, perfect. I'll do it this way. But like, you know, at some point we might not need it. But for now, it just kind of gives us the operating system. But like, again, if you know yourself well enough, you're probably doing it already.
Erin Claire Jones, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to talk to you. One last question. Do you want to just let the audience know, and I'm going to link to your website and your social media in the show notes, but is there anything in particular you want the audience to know that you're working on?
I mean, I think the blueprint's a good one. I'm happy to give you guys a discount for that, but it basically is a 30-page PDF on your design, so that's a really good place to get started. Other things that I'm working on, I mean, there's a lot right now, but I think that like that and sessions are really kind of the best place, and then you'll link to my stuff, but I'm Erin Claire Jones everywhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you have it, my conversation with Erin Claire Jones. Erin has very, very generously offered listeners of Dear Franny a discount on her blueprint. So if you want to know what is your human design, what is it all about, how can you use it for your life, this is an excellent starting point. So if you go to her website, please check the show notes for links to her website. And if you use the promo code Dear Franny, she has offered a discount to the listeners of this podcast. So thank you, Erin. We're so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for all of you who are listening. I'm so grateful for human design having come into my life because it's changed it. It really has. And like I said, in the show notes, you'll find links to all of Erin Claire's social media and her website. And you can also find links to mine. I am at Dear Franny on all social media. I'm at Dear Franny Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Please stay in touch. Please let me know how you're enjoying the show. If you are enjoying the show, please take the time to rate and review the podcast. And more importantly, share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with anybody you know who thinks might benefit from hearing any of these great conversations with these brilliant people that I get to talk to. How lucky am I? I appreciate you. Wherever you are in the world, I know that your time is precious, and I don't take for granted that you have chosen to spend a little bit of it with me today. And so for that, I am eternally grateful. Have a beautiful day. Until next time.